That's because the Granite State is very good at picking nominees. Since 1980, 5 of the 7 winners of the New Hampshire primary went on to claim the nomination. That's a 71% record, more than twice the record of the Iowa caucuses. The voters are vastly different in Iowa as well. 41% of likely voters in New Hampshire's GOP primary say they're moderate or liberal. In Iowa, that number was just 23%. If Iowa's Republican electorate was made for Trump, and it was, the New Hampshire's electorate is Haley's last big hope before South Carolina. It's not nearly as rural. There are far fewer evangelical voters. Lisa Kashinsky covers New Hampshire politics for Politico. She's with us tonight, along with former New Hampshire Senator Judd Gregg. Appreciate both of you being with us. Senator, we'll start with you. Did Nikki Haley peak too early?
No. New Hampshire always has been a late deciding state. A lot of people don't make their mind up until the final weekend. She's actually in a very good position, in my opinion. It is a two-person race in New Hampshire. DeSantis isn't having any impact at all, and to the extent he takes votes, he probably takes them from Trump, but he's not going to take many votes. Trump probably can't get over 50% in New Hampshire. I'm pretty sure he can't get over 50% in New Hampshire. In 2016, he got 32%. Because he had 4 very strong candidates running against him. This time he only has 1 strong candidate running against him, and she's speaking definitively, speaking positively, being upbeat, being optimistic. That's something New Hampshire voters like. And you've got to remember that in New Hampshire, independents can vote in our primary. Most of the independents who are going to vote in our primary used to be Republicans. I can say that for sure because they used to support me. But they moved over to the independent status because they're mostly women, educated women who can't stand Donald Trump. So I don't think you're going to see a very, I think when the independents vote, they're going to vote for Nikki. And if you looked at those polls, I don't lay much faith in polls, quite honestly. They never took one when I was running for office. But if you look at those polls, there's 20% undecided according to those polls.
That's a great. It's a great point about the undecideds. Lisa, compare Donald Trump and Nikki Haley's ground game in New Hampshire. We saw Trump really invest in Iowa. Haley had not. Does she have a real structure in addition to what Governor Sununu has brought?
Yeah, she definitely does, both with her own campaign and super PACs that she has supporting her that have been knocking doors in this state. Even when she was in Iowa dealing with the caucus, they were out here knocking doors and really sprung into action when Chris Christie in particular dropped out shortly before the Iowa caucuses. He wasn't competing there, obviously, but he was competing here in New Hampshire. And so the push was really on to win over his voters, and that was potentially, a major get for her. So it's not just Sununu, though having him with her has swayed quite a few voters that I've talked to over the past few weeks.
Senator, if there's going to be somebody, that's why we have good guests like both of you. We appreciate it. I think about you saying that the electorate for New Hampshire is almost tailor-made for Nikki Haley, right? And yet somebody who was sort of a similar to Nikki Haley candidate was John Kasich back in 2016, who ran against Donald Trump with kind of the same themes that Nikki Haley does. And he lost to Trump by 20%. Why would Nikki Haley be any different?
Well, that race had 4 people who got in the teens. It had Jeb Bush, it had Kasich, and there were 2 other people. Trump got to 32%, which was a high watermark for him. So as a practical matter, I don't think you can compare the 2 races. This is a one-on-one race. In a one-on-one race, the president's going to have a base that's pretty strong. It's always strong. It's strong everywhere. But it's not 50%. And so I think Haley does very well. Now, is she going to win? I noticed in your introduction you said she had to win to stay in this race. I don't think so. I don't think she has to win to stay in the race. She might win. What she has to do is come so close that she really scares Trump. And she makes herself viable on Super Tuesday. You remember on Super Tuesday, there are going to be a lot of states that aren't Southern where people will vote and probably not vote for Trump, Republicans, because getting 50% in those states is going to be hard. So I think if she gets to Super Tuesday as a very viable candidate, which she could by doing very well in New Hampshire and remaining competitive in South Carolina, it's game on. It's a narrow path. I admit that. Very narrow path because the president's very popular.
You sound like a supporter, or at least a fan.
I'm sorry?
I said you sound like a supporter or at least a fan, and you're right. There's some Super Tuesday state that has.
She very much brings the character which we need as a party to regain control of the presidency, the House and the Senate. She's upbeat, she's positive, she's definitive. She reminds me a lot of Margaret Thatcher, who I got to know a little bit when I was working.
Wow, that's high.
She is a force for conservative values.
That's high cotton. That's high cotton. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.